early on in that time, my friend was a friend of and working with Buffy St. Marie to try to get a tour that actually never happened, but a tour I'm going on way longer than you intended, but I'll finish this little part, I'm sorry, and then to Australia. And I went up to talk to her about it, and she had an Indian band she was rehearsing, and also Floyd Westerman was there. And then while we're there, Dennis Banks walks in with Bill Wampapaw and 6 other guys, and I recognized Dennis because Alcatraz was going on when I was in San Francisco, and I ended up doing the play in New York while Wounded Knee was happening. So all that was on my radar screen, of what's going on. But and I connected with Floyd, and we traveled around. He took me over to Met Vine, and it was at a time where I was ready for it, and I think saved me from doing going down that path. When people get a job, they can pay for the drugs, and what friends are going to tell them they got their head up their ass because they're sponsoring the party, that John Belushi kind of wrote, But also, so everything from just opened my eyes and my heart in ways that have continued. I've always gotten a lot more credit. This guy has helped us, saved my life and made my life. So that's the long-winded. I'll try to make everything else sound bites.
All right. Well, let me ask the same question for Delana. How did you get started? I mean, did you come from No Fire Hollow as well?
I come from a small town called Liberty, Oklahoma. That's between Muldrow and Roland, close to Nycut and Long and Short. So Sequoia County, middle of nowhere. How I got started, this is really funny. My dad is the reason why I became an actor. I have severe social anxiety, and I was super shy as a kid. I mean, really shy. Like you could barely get 2 words out of me. And because we're Cherokee and Cherokee are matrilineal, our women are meant to be leaders. And my dad was cousins with Wilma Mankiller, so he was like, you gotta be strong like Wilma. And so when I was in 7th grade, my father made me take speech, debate, and drama, and I hated him for it. Hated him. Seriously, it was like torture. It was like, why would you do this to me? Why do you hate me so much? But it was through that I was able to, I will jokingly say that acting saved my life, because it taught me the coping skills to be able to be in rooms like this and to have conversations with people. I was able to find my voice by hiding behind a character. I was able to find my voice by saying other people's words. And for the first time in my life, I felt like I was able to articulate who I was and how I was feeling because of the work that I was being forced to do by my father. And what's crazy is I didn't go to school to be an actor. I actually went to school to be an engineer, and I had a tool company. I used to make broaching tools for CNC lathes and screw machines. I don't know if anyone in the audience has ever heard of those things, but I did that. I have a tool company. And then I sold that to further my acting career. And that's how I got to be where I am now. It's because of my father making me be a strong Cherokee woman against my will. But like I said, if it wasn't for my father forcing me to do that, I don't think I would be able to be on this stage, and I probably wouldn't be on this plane right now, because it helped me survive and find myself.
I think that happens quite often, that men push women, women push men. It's a give and take thing, and I know, I wouldn't have been worth any if my mother hadn't have, okay, I'm bald for a reason. My mother jerked my hair out of my head. Casey, tell me about you.
I actually was talking about this story a little bit earlier in a different workshop we were in. You mentioned Wounded Knee. I had 3 brothers and my dad in Wounded Knee. My brother Carter Kemp was the leader of the American Indian Movement. And then traditionally, I'm very blessed with the same type of women in my family. So I'm the drumkeeper for the Women's Society in my tribe. And my mama just told me, If you're asked to do something, you do it. And didn't matter about, I mean, in that age, I never heard of the word social anxiety. It was like, these are all new terms, and I know them well now, but I didn't know them then. And being a Native woman whose grandpa was on the forest removal, whose great-grandma passed these ways down and through the grandmas that way, my family had always been what's now called activist, because there wasn't a word for activist or environmentalist or any of that. We were traditionalist. That's the ist that I am, that I claim. But we were land defenders, water protectors long before those words were there. And I was always blessed. My companion of 54 years is sitting out here, to be a mama, a grandma, now a great-grandma, and a companion who took care of the AIM troops. We had an AIM house, did laundry, changed diapers, and all of that. But I got a call from a niece who was in LA in the early 80s, and there was a friend of hers that had gone to school with my brother and sister. Nothing short, so forgive me. And his name was Bob Hicks. And so I asked my brother and sister, who is this? They gave me background. They went to Haskell with him. And my niece said he's looking for someone to come talk about the issues that we're now dealing with having casting. And there's this thing called the Windwalker Award Show that's going to happen, and they want an activist voice to talk about the lack of representation of indigenous people, at that time we were American Indians, in the media. And so my uncle and auntie were actually in Windwalker, and it was only being allowed into the foreign films portions of the festivals because they spoke Cheyenne. And so they wouldn't allow it to be entered into just the film festival. And so I went out to LA and talked about that. And Bob, being Bob, and mentoring everybody in the world, said, look, they're looking for a 9-year-old boy. We had a 9-year-old boy, Mikasi, who was one of the leaders at Standing Rock, by the way, and was the leader, actually, chosen by the 7 tribes up there. Anyway, they need a 9-year-old boy. You better go take him an audition. So I did. And JR, Bob, the others chose him to be in that lead part. And I was the stage mama. I had all my other little kiddies with me in the green room. And as the people flooded in from both coasts to play us, and I'm sure you all remember, it was any brown person playing a red person. And if they weren't brown enough, they browned them up. And people like Harrison and myself, yourself, West Stevie, many others, were the background natives. So they'd be 2 trees, a bush, a teepee, and 2 natives over there. And so we had a good time. We really enjoyed that, because it hadn't occurred to, I thought acting was really fluffy. It didn't feel as if it had any grounding. Simultaneously, within our ceremonies, our spiritual leaders, our Ieska, our translators from the spirit world, were saying, the spirits say utilize the media. And they came in many different ceremonies and said that to us. To me at that time, I thought that meant more media coming to our protest. That's what we needed. Till Black Elk speaks. And I was looking out at the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people who had tears flowing hearing our stories. It was like burying my heart at Wounded Knee, this pageant of Blackout Speaks was. And it was like, boy, that's what the spirits are saying. Utilize the media. And so I opened myself to that guidance and continue to walk into acting through that. But it's with an incredible family of encouragement and an incredible theater family that we all made that taught each other and continue to support each other as we're supposed to, our community.
We're doing Blackout Speaks. You told me one time, I don't even know why you told me, you said the spirit of Crazy Horse has moved to the South. And that always grabbed me. So when I got a chance to play Crazy Horse, I really took that to heart. I thought about that every day. Harrison Lowe. This guy, of all the plays that we ever did with JR and the American Indian Theater Company, I think I remember almost every line you ever delivered because you delivered it in a way only Harrison Lowe can deliver it. So hit me with one right now. Go ahead and kill me with your eyes.
They can eat grass. They can eat grass. That's how the play we did back in '84, Blackout Speaks. Actually, I was background when they hired me to be the extra. And Chris Servo, I guess got to liking him, we did some death scenes, and he liked the way I portrayed a dead people, a dead person. No? Anyway, so after a while, he went to, what's that guy's name? The director. Yeah. And so they put me in, gave me a line. That was that line they gave me. And the character was standing next to the Indian agent that gave food to the tribe or the local villages. We didn't have any food. And everybody started grumbling, hey, where's our food, where's our money? And then I turned around and I said, well, you can eat grass. That was my main line. One and only line.
Well, Trish, I gotta ask you, when you're looking for that perfect role, that perfect, and you're seeing big names and people that no one's ever heard about, has there ever been anybody walk in your office and they were, because Hollywood's filled with beautiful people, has there ever been anybody walk in and you just went, they're kind of took you back because they were so gorgeous or so talented? Or
well, I think there's, I think there is something, kind of sacred about that casting space, because it's usually just a director and a casting director and then the talent that gets to come in. And so you're asking these artists to come in and be vulnerable and kind of show a part of themselves in the hope to get a job. So there's an attachment to the space, but in the best sense of the process, when they come in and they perform and you just know it's a home run, or you get chills and you look at the director and he says, that's the person. Like, there's kind of nothing more exciting than the job that I do than to get to see that happen, like, kind of right in front of your eyes.
yeah, kind of like the feeling when you hit a home run. It's like you just know it's going. So have you ever gone, like, on this quest all over the world or wherever, all over America, looking for that perfect person, and it was like, you felt like it was your job was on the line?
I mean, I wouldn't say I ever felt like my job was on the line, but it feels like, depending on the size of the cast, and sometimes you have 200 people to cast, and depending on how big the ensemble is, there's always one role. There's one role that takes longer to cast than any of the other roles, and it's the longest one, and sometimes you just think you're never gonna find it, and then eventually, one of the first movies I worked on was Primal Fear, and Edward Norton was the 2000th person we had seen. And so at the very end of that process, 3 weeks before shooting, to test him, that was one of the longest, hardest role to find that was so central to, was the lead in the movie, so.
He was amazing in that movie. Now, if they ever tell your life story, would you cast Delana Studi?
Well, I always tell everybody if they make the Trisha Wood movie, then I'll be an actor. No one will do it better than me. So.
Okay. Delana Studi could be your sister that comes and saves you.
Throughout the 200 films that we've cast, Deb Aquila is my mentor and casting partner, and she, has an MFA from Tisch, from the Adler Studio. So everyone in our office is Adler trained and quite remarkable actors. Like, it's just not our vocation, but it is like playing tennis with someone. It's so much fun to get to spend, a large portion of my job acting opposite actors and there being no pressure or no camera on me. So it's the best
That would
for
be
me.
the perfect job. That would be. Does anybody ever yell, Stella? Oh. Because of Stella Adler. Yeah. Well, Max, so you were telling a story of how you got involved with Native theater. How does, and Native movies and Native activism, so how have things changed, by your perspective, how have things changed now than what they were when Will was first getting started?
Well, I think, back in that time when Will started the registry, when there was that need that was met. And one of the things that I became aware of was that there were a lot of casting people who felt like, well, the problem is Indians just don't know how to act, which really was, they don't know how to act the way we think Indians should act, or do act, so, and, no understanding of the humor, because, humans will shut down if they're around people that are clueless to their humanity. That's true of all of us, but it's certainly true where Indian people have grown up in the blind spot of a clueless society. So, and then there was the issue of casting Indians, or indigenous or whatever language we're using right now, but in those parts, and that's a no-brainer. But I would find, as I was on the learning curve and would get asked, there's also the question of, well, that part that's written for a doctor or a lawyer or a policeman or something, why can't that be a Native actor? Why do you have to, it is an opportunity to expand consciousness, but it doesn't always have to be somebody standing next to the TV in the bush, but then there was the thing of people would be saying, they ought to tell stories more like, they ought to tell a story that doesn't need the white savior that dances with wolves, or, when that proved there was a market there. And there still was doing Geronimo. It's still the stars even today with this big movie that I haven't seen yet, and wonderful. But there's a lot of issues. It's wonderful that it's been made. It's wonderful that the care was taken, and all. But it's, but especially the more I spend time, the more time I spent, actually, for me it was like finding my way home. Is how I experienced it, but it was like, well, they are never going to tell those stories because they don't know what those stories are. They don't know. But the kinds of things that were happening with JR, are you out there somewhere, that I, was aware of is what was going on. People with the talent